This is hands down one of the weirdest anime I have ever seen, yet I can't get enough of it. And in a world where studios almost refuse to take risks, you have this show which you can't define, you can't put inside that box and easily explain what this show truly is. You have idols, you have isekai fantasy-like world environments, dungeon crawling. They casually throw in a Wild West saloon because why wouldn't they? I mean, at first I thought we were about to go into a haunted mansion because why wouldn't we in this world? No, it's just a reporter telling ghost stories and actually is pretty crazy all things considered. This show you can't define by a single genre, you can't define by a single sentence, yet I always leave an episode wanting more. And for a show not trying to revolutionize the anime industry, it's doing a surprisingly good job keeping me invested week after week. This was another fantastic episode. I leave with a grin on my face, excitement in my heart, and seriously, I can't get enough of this one. Now, I do have a full live reaction to today's wonderful episode available on my Patreon, so if you want to see my full uncut thoughts to this weird Wild West bounty hunting extravaganza, head on over there and consider supporting. I mean, this show does a pretty good job at characterization in terms of really getting inside the characters' heads. And yes, I'd say about half of the cast have really had at least one big moment to really shine. But I think with the remaining episodes here over the next month, I really feel like what they're trying to accomplish is more or less giving the remainder of the cast a little bit more of the spotlight while also just showing some individual fun stories, because we're not going to reach by the end of episode 12 or anything where they save the world or do anything like that. No, it's still very early into their life. But in terms of getting to know them better, they're doing a great job. And this episode had a lot more Zem focus, which is a nice change of pace given he hasn't been as much of the focus. And there's these little moments that I really find go a long way and continue to feel realistic, but also show you just who he is deep down inside. So as we know, he had that false allegation that basically ruined his life, and obviously it ate away at him. He literally drowned himself in booze and women's to drown out the sorrow. He very much was messed up after that, and anyone would be. And you have this, in this episode, we have this reporter saying like, there's this person, there's this monster out there, and honestly, I thought it was just a reporter spreading a ghost story to sell newspapers or something like that. Turns out is actually the reporter herself, and basically, there's a lot of kidnapping going on, and we see this girl almost get dragged into the alley, and Zem and the others come in and stop it from happening. And this little girl's like, oh, I want to be trained under you, which seriously, it's probably the first time anyone, especially a younger person, has looked at him with kindness rather than being repulsed because of the false allegation and everything that was made. And he's like, yo, you know what, just wait 10, 15 years. And it's not one of those things like, I gotta wait till you grow up so I can be with you. It's more of like I can't risk having everything destroyed on me again, but just know you're gonna be okay. Train in this way, and we'll see what happens afterwards. And I like how immediately it de-escalates something that could have caused more drama, but just realistically said, the dude's a good guy who had a very bad hand dealt to him, but man does he make the best of any situation right now. I think those little moments go a long way. And when you look at the production of this episode, I mean, a lot of times people harp on some animation moments or some character inconsistencies, and I brought them up myself. I think it's worth mentioning anything that is a negative, but there definitely are people who oversell the negative elements, in my opinion. And I think when you look at an episode like this, that had a Wild West saloon, they had a slums environment that had graffiti, and honestly, you could have, at some points, you could have convinced people it was a modern anime, and then at other points, it looked like a fantasy slum area where maybe different species are being discriminated against, and you could headcanon a bunch of things just from the background details. And I think when you look at an episode like this, honestly, one of the more refined episodes of the show to date, it helps that there wasn't really action outside of maybe the alleyway scene, and then at the very end when she kicks the table and the table, after splitting into two, connects right back down, which I thought was fantastic. Yes, there wasn't a lot of action, so it helps keep things consistent, but there was a lot of really smaller details, whether background details, whether facial expressions, that help sell the immersion. And for an episode that I truly thought the direction they were going was that, okay, by the time we start piecing it together, there's this monster, there's this creature, there's something out there that's hurting, kidnapping, doing all these things. I truly thought what was happening was the person who was cloaked prior to learning who it was. Maybe it was something like, oh, you know, there's like this invisibility cloak, they're just like spreading ghost stories, they're making it look like someone's being kidnapped, but then she lets them go. So basically, like anyone who's a reporter, it's a pretty good way to sell a story not have to find something new but continue the trend. Turns out, no, I think maybe it actually was kidnapping fully. Like, maybe it is also because of wanting to sell a story, but no, apparently actually committing those acts. So, going from pretty sweet, adorable, because I mean, it's not the first time anime fans have always seen those characters who have like a personality at face value, but then it's a lot darker behind the scenes. But just to see how she like kicks the table and gets out of dodge, I mean, seriously, I wasn't expecting it. I thought it was going to be like a de-escalating moment where like it looked worse than it actually was. Turned out, no, it probably was about as worse as we thought. And honestly, the entirety of this episode, when you go from idols, you go from saloons, you go from bounty hunting, like there's just so much about this show that feels like 12 different anime, and rather than feeling like a disjointed mess, instead it just feels like a world as complex as ours. There's different countries, there's different cities where you go to, and it's a completely different cultural environment, and that's kind of how this world feels. And I like that rather than just because we're in a more fantasy environment, instead they say, why can't we have more modern ideas like idol concerts and things like that? It really does go a long way to make this world pop out. And I think had they not gone as extreme as they did with idols and all these other wild ideas that you normally don't associate with a show with a fantasy dungeon crawling adventure environment, I honestly think this show would have hooked me in quite as much as it did, and I probably would have dropped it earlier on. But because it had such a fascinating and different take on these types of worlds, how wouldn't I come back week after week? And honestly, this one has continued to impress me every single episode. With just a few left to go, I'm excited to see what they do. Hopefully the remaining cast will get at least one more moment, a big moment anyway. I'm not even saying we need a fusion with them or anything, but just continuing to show them at a better place than where they started out in the show. It will go a long way to lead the viewers off saying, you don't even need to give us a season 2. You don't even need to jump into the source material. What we saw over the course of a core, just a single core, was enough to say, these characters are going to be okay. And if I can leave a show like this saying the characters are going to be okay, yes, we had the little intro to the episode, the narrator, these are the adventurers who will eventually save the world. We know that. But it's a lot different to see the characters at a genuinely good place in life considering where they started out, and the idea of redemption and picking yourself back up. They've done a really good job with this show. Sometimes people like to say, like last week, oh, it was boring, it was slow, but no, to me, it was absolutely exhilarating. It's just, I love seeing characterization in such a unique and fresh way, especially because this type of stuff I don't usually associate with fantasy anime with magic and monsters and beast people, but this show says we're gonna do whatever the hell we like, and I have to respect it for that. As one of probably the loudest voices in support of this series, I honestly continue to have such a great time with this, and I really hope the remaining episodes will make me just as, if not more excited than what I've already seen from this wild series. It is weird as hell. I think this is weird as hell, but I use that as a compliment. I wish more anime would just be weird, be different, and have fun experimenting, because that's exactly what this author seemingly did. And this studio, I think they're doing a great job with what they were given. So thoughts and feelings yourself down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, be sure to ring that bell so you can get notified when I upload on the channel. And of course, as I mentioned, I do have that full live reaction available on my Patreon. While you're there, you can also get yourself a video shout out. So today we have Power 9987, Restart Kun, Teeny Bopper, The Good Shark, Ranga Rage, Skarsky, Trell, and Sign. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.